I have finally finished Season 4 of Stranger Things. I'm here to give you guys my review of this season. If you've seen it, be sure to leave a comment in the comment section of what you thought about this season. And this review will contain spoilers because the season's just been out for a little while now, so I'm going to talk spoilers. If you want to check out my reviews for the previous 3 seasons, I'll have a playlist you can click on and go check those out. And be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. So now let's get into this review. So I thought Season 4 of Stranger Things was another really good season in this series. I've thought every season's been good. If you've seen my previous reviews, you know I did think the 3rd season was the weakest to this point, but still good, and I definitely think Season 4 is a little bit better than Season 3. Still not quite as good as Season 2 or Season 1, but still very solid. For the most part, the storylines in this I like more than the 3rd season. The first half of that season just was kind of a mixed bag. This season had more plot lines that I was more interested in. There were a few that I wasn't a huge fan of, but for the most part, I quite enjoyed them. I liked what was going on in Hawkins with the character Eddie and that gang in Hawkins helping him out. I liked most of that storyline. I liked what was happening with Elle and Nevada, where she's getting her powers back, and sort of the kind of road trip that Mike, Will, and his brother and their new friend Argyle go on. That was all really good, and I enjoyed them. And those 3 plots, while they were separate for the most part, you know, until the end, they were all pushing the main story of the season forwards. Whereas one of the plots that I wasn't a huge fan of, didn't really feel like I was doing that till maybe like the very end of the season, and that was the plot where they were in Russia getting Hopper back, because we thought at the end of Season 3 he was dead, but turns out he's not, and I'm glad that character's still alive because I really enjoy that character. I think David Harbour is really great in the role. Just whenever they cut back to what was going on in Russia, I just sort of lost interest because it wasn't really pushing the overall plot forward. It was just to get Hopper out of Russia. And at the very end of the season, in that sort of plot line, it actually kind of links back to what's going on in the more main stories. But for the most part, it's just like, oh yeah, now we're here. Kind of want to go back to the other stuff just because it was more interesting, like seeing Elle get her powers back, and it was also exploring more of her past that we didn't know about, and exploring a new character named Henry, who I'll get into a little bit more soon. And then what was going on in Hawkins with Eddie, seeing these people being killed, like just floating in the air, and their limbs just snapping, their eyes like just being shoved in and stuff. It was brutal to watch, but it was interesting, and that links back to Henry, who I'll get into a little bit. That I really enjoyed. I like what sort of the group that were still in Hawkins, like what they're trying to do with helping Eddie's character. And then there's a nice little story too of Mike, Will's brother Jonathan, and Argyle going to find Elle after she'd been taken and went to Nevada. That was pretty good. I enjoyed that. The other 2 plots that were much smaller that I didn't care for, there's one more concerning the military, who the leader there thought that these attacks that were happening in Hawkins was because of Elle. He thought she was doing it, and I get why you would think she may have been responsible, given that it's believed she had a history of sort of just going wild and killing people when she was a kid in the, like, that facility she was in when she was younger. So I get why you might think it was her, but he sort of, at the end of towards the end of the season, when he finds her in Nevada in that little base, he's just there to just straight up kill her, and it's like, okay, you don't fully know she did this, especially since these attacks are taking place in a small town in Indiana, and she's currently in Nevada, not the same place. It's like, I just thought that was just too much. Like, I just thought, yeah, it was just too idiotic. Like, you would actually make sure this person's responsible before you go and kill them. So, and they didn't do much with it. Like, it popped up here and there, but then after that moment in like the second last or third to last episode where he tries to kill her, you don't see him again, so I'm not sure if that will come back in Season 5 or not. And then the other smaller plot line that I didn't care for was in Hawkins. There's this group of basketball players, and so like the captain of that team, his girlfriend was the first one killed by the villain, and it's believed Eddie killed her. And then later on, when he sees his other friend being killed when they're trying to catch Eddie, he sees his friend floats up to the air, all his limbs snap and whatnot, something that no human can do. And his mind just goes, oh, it's, I guess, the devil through Eddie, because this club he's in is called Hellfire. You know, all this club does is play Dungeons and Dragons, and he manages to like convince pretty much the whole town of this, and I'm just like, give me a break. I'm like, I think people would be a little smarter than that, but he was desperate, maybe I could get that, but just the fact that like everybody's listening to him and it's like, this doesn't make any sense. That part I didn't really care for. The rest of it I thought was really good though. A lot of the character arcs that are being continued through this season I really liked. I like how Steve has continued to develop and become a better character throughout this whole series, and in this season they're sort of almost hinting that they might be doing the love triangle between Nancy, Steve, and Jonathan again, which I'm not a love triangle guy, so I'm not too thrilled with that, but this time I can buy why Nancy may want to be with Steve now, with the way his character is, more so than I could in the first season. So that's a bit better at least. And like I could see how it may not work out with Jonathan now, the way their relationship was in this season. And there were times when just we didn't get certain character dynamics that I enjoyed in the previous few series. And one of those was the relationship between Will and Jonathan, the two brothers. In the previous seasons, especially the first two, they always had a really nice relationship, and there wasn't much of that in this season until the end. They have a very nice moment where they sort of acknowledge why they haven't been as close. So I really like that, and I hope we get more of that relationship in season 5. And they continue to develop Elle's relationship with Mike. They've been developing Will, where they're sort of hinting that he has feelings for Mike, and well, I don't think there's really going to be a serious love triangle with that. They were sort of showing how Will's actually a really good friend by trying to help Mike and Elle stay together in certain scenes. So I thought they've been doing a really good job with that character. And this season also had a really great villain with Vecna. I thought it was a very strong villain in my opinion. I liked what they did with him being Henry at the start, or in his past he was just a regular guy named Henry with special abilities, and I liked the exploration of his past in this series. And then we see him become Vecna, who is sort of in present time in the show. And I really liked that character. He was menacing, he was scary. You could sort of get why he was the way he was. And definitely got some Voldemort vibes from him, about both Tom Riddle and Voldemort stuff with him. There's definitely similarities with him being your sort of average person but with abilities, and then becoming a very powerful person without a nose. Very similar to Voldemort. But I like that character. The one thing that did kind of let me down a bit in this season was the finale. And while I thought the last episode itself was great, parts of it just felt kind of underwhelming compared to the finales of the previous 3 seasons. And I don't know if that's partly because they're wanting to hold off a bit with Vecna for the finale of season 5, which I think is going to be the final season of this series, because they're certainly hinting that Vecna was not gone and he'll be back. So there are parts that just sort of felt kind of underwhelming, but overall it was a great episode. It just sort of again, compared to the finales of the previous 3 seasons, it just felt a little underwhelming, but overall still great. And I think it's partly because they're going to just be holding off on Vecna for a little bit for the finale of season 5. But overall, I thought this was another very good season. I would give season 4 of Stranger Things an 81%. So guys, if you have seen this season, let me know what you thought of it, and be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And be sure to stay tuned for some of my upcoming videos. I should have a review out for Live and Let Die very soon, and I'll have more videos out shortly after that. So stay tuned for those, and until my next video, take care everybody.